The world did not wake up to a crisis in Greenland. The crisis was created not by invasion, not by war, not by scarcity, but by a manufactured demand from the United States. For decades, Greenland existed inside a stable, boring, predictable order administered by Denmark, embedded in Europe, protected by alliances, not ambition. Then suddenly ownership became the issue, not access, not security. Ownership. This is not how modern geopolitics usually breaks. This is how systems fracture from within. When a superpower tests its closest allies voluntarily, publicly, without provocation. What you are watching is not a land dispute, it is a stress test of trust, and once trust is tested this way, it rarely returns unchanged. If this feels unsettling, it should, because this story is not really about Greenland. Stay with me, because what comes next reshapes how alliances survive or collapse in the 21st century. To understand this moment, you have to separate noise from structure. This dispute is not about defense gaps. It is not about Russian missiles. It is not about Chinese encroachment. Those threats already existed, and they were already managed. The real issue is simpler and far more dangerous. The United States reframed a cooperative relationship into a transactional one. It replaced partnership with purchase. In doing so, it forced Denmark, Greenland, and by extension Europe into a defensive position over something that was never contested. No red line was crossed by Europe. No refusal of cooperation was issued. The only thing Europe said no to was the sale of sovereignty. And that distinction matters, because modern alliances are not built on ownership. They are built on access, trust, and predictability. When ownership becomes the demand, the alliance itself becomes the collateral. And once that shift happens, history starts moving very fast, which raises a deeper question. How did we get here in the first place? To answer that, you have to step back into history, because nothing about this moment is inevitable. For most of the post-World War II era, security followed a simple logic. Threats were deterred through alliances, power was projected through presence, stability was maintained without ownership. During the Cold War, the United States defended Western Europe without owning it. Troops were deployed, bases were built, commitments were honored, sovereignty remained intact. That system worked because it aligned with reality. Deterrence is about credibility, not possession. The same logic applies today. Look at Taiwan. The United States does not own Taiwan. Yet its security posture shapes the entire region. History is clear on this point. You do not need to own territory to defend it, which makes the Greenland demand an outlier. Not a continuation of strategy, but a break from it. And when strategy breaks from precedent, it usually means something deeper has shifted. The question is not why Greenland matters now. The question is what changed in the system that made ownership suddenly feel necessary. Then came the first rupture. Not dramatic, not violent, but revealing. The moment Greenland was publicly discussed as something to be acquired, that single act changed the equation because it turned an ally into an object. What had been a shared security space became a bargaining chip. This was the first mini-crisis, not because of what was demanded, but because of what was implied. If sovereignty can be priced, then no alliance is permanent. If loyalty can be monetized, then trust becomes conditional. European leaders understood this immediately. This was not negotiation. It was a signal that norms could be suspended. That precedent no longer mattered, and once that signal is sent, it cannot be unsent. This is where the real damage begins, because crises born from necessity can be managed. Crises born from choice spread, and this choice forced Europe to start asking a question it had not asked in generations. What if the alliance itself is no longer stable? At the core of this crisis is a misunderstanding, so basic it almost feels intentional. The confusion between ownership and access. Europe was never saying no to cooperation. It was offering something far more practical: military access, economic partnership, security integration, including cooperation on rare earths, everything a modern power actually needs. What Europe rejected was the symbolism of possession, because sovereignty is not a commodity. The strategic fallacy here is profound. Control does not require a title deed. Influence does not require a flag. In modern alliances, power flows through networks, not annexations. And yet the demand persisted, not for capability, but for ownership. That persistence reveals the truth. This was never about defense optimization. It was about optics, about performance, about demonstrating dominance. And when symbolism overrides function, systems begin to malfunction, because alliances are not real estate deals. They are trust architectures. Break that distinction and the entire structure starts to wobble, which leads directly to the next escalation. The Arctic is changing, quietly, relentlessly. Climate change is doing what geopolitics never could. It is opening Greenland, ice retreats, sea lanes emerge, resources become reachable, especially rare earths. This shift should have triggered coordination, treaties, rules, shared management. Europe understood this. That is why it offered deeper cooperation, but the response was blunt: acquire the territory. Here is the irony. The same administration pushing this demand denies the science making Greenland valuable in the first place. As access increases, so does the need for diplomacy. Shipping routes require governance, resource extraction requires legitimacy, security requires consent. Ownership solves none of that. In fact, it destabilizes everything, because the Arctic is not a frontier to be claimed. It is a system to be managed. And when climate transforms geography, the winners are those who cooperate fastest, not those who reach for flags. This moment was a fork in the road: partnership or provocation. The choice made here set the stage for a far more dangerous response. Now let me bring this down to you, because geopolitics is never abstract when systems fail. When trust breaks at the top, the cost travels downward, to your energy bill, to your taxes, to your security. You live inside these alliances, whether you vote on them or not. When leaders turn cooperation into confrontation, markets react. Defense spending rises, uncertainty spreads, and uncertainty is expensive. You are told this is about strategy, but what you feel is instability, a sense that the rules are changing without your consent, that yesterday's guarantees no longer apply tomorrow. This is how confidence erodes, slowly, then all at once. If alliances can be questioned, so can everything built on them. This is why this matters to you, because when trust collapses at the top, ordinary people pay the price at the bottom. If this analysis helps you see the system more clearly, stay with me, because the next layer moves beyond Europe. It reaches the entire world. What happens in Greenland does not stay in Greenland, because the world watches how alliances treat stress. If the United States can pressure Europe, others take notes. China sees signals. Russia sees opportunity. Non-aligned states reassess loyalties. The message is subtle but devastating. Commitments are conditional. Treaties are negotiable. Power is transactional. That weakens deterrence everywhere. In Asia, allies ask harder questions. In the Middle East, hedging accelerates. In the global South, neutrality becomes safer than alignment. This is how credibility evaporates, not through defeat, through doubt. The post-war order worked because it was predictable. Once predictability is gone, every regional dispute becomes more volatile, not because rivals grow stronger, but because trust grows thinner. The Greenland episode feeds this chain reaction. A small place, a massive signal, and once global perception shifts, it is almost impossible to reverse, which brings us to the future. Not one outcome, but three, each shaped by a single variable: whether systems learn, or repeat their mistakes. The future now branches, not randomly, but structurally. Scenario 1, correction. Rationality returns, the crisis is diffused, access replaces ownership, trust stabilizes, but never fully heals. Europe cooperates, the United States steps back, the alliance survives, weaker, more cautious, but intact. Scenario 2, stagnation, nothing explodes, nothing improves, distrust becomes permanent background noise, Europe hedges, defense autonomy accelerates, the alliance exists on paper, not in instinct. This is the slow decay path. Scenario 3, rupture, the worst case, escalation without intent, misreading without correction, a future where allies plan as if help might not come. This is not collapse by war, it is collapse by doubt. History tells us something important here. Systems rarely fail because of enemies. They fail because leaders ignore feedback. Greenland is not the test, it is the warning. And warnings only matter if someone is listening. Here is the hard truth. This was never about land. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, does not reset with elections. The Greenland episode marked a line, a before, and an after. Europe has learned something it cannot unlearn, that guarantees can be questioned, that alliances can be leveraged. From now on, European security will be built with more distance, more redundancy, and less faith in permanence. The United States will still be powerful, but no longer unquestioned. The post-war order did not end with a bang. It cracked quietly. If you want to understand the next decade, watch how nations ensure themselves against uncertainty, not against enemies, against unpredictability. If this analysis helped you see the system more clearly, share it, because understanding power is the first defense against instability. And this story does not end here.